Hello everybody, this is Marty from Marty's Moccasins and Things. If you like this video, go ahead and hit the like. If you want to see more, then go ahead and hit the little subscribe button. I can be found on Facebook. I have been gone for a little while. Life, don't you know? Between work and grandkids and other things, I had a show. There's just too much to do. So I haven't been on here in a while. Today, I wanted to do a necklace that is made of completely of beads and wire and a little bit of chain. As you can see, I'm using opalite. I happen to be using an arrowhead. You don't have to use opalite. You can use anything you want. I'm going to make other different types of stones, but this is the one I'm working on now. You just go ahead and make whatever your focal stone is going to be. And then I'm using a bead stack of 3 and then 2 and then 1s, and I'll finish out the whole necklace with 1s. Now what you're going to need to do this, of course, is beads. I'm using 8mm. You can use whatever you want. All of my measurements are going to be for an 8mm bead. I've got my trusty round nose pliers to make my loops. I've got wire cutters, of course, and my flat nose pliers, chain nose pliers. Not flat nose, chain nose. And you're going to need wire, whatever kind of wire you're using. I'm going to be using 20mm silver, or 20mm, 20 gauge silver. And I'm going to be using some chain here. I'm going to be using these links like, why do I always forget the word? I'm going to be using these links to put them together instead of the normal the word escapes me. You know what I mean. Little round ones. Really? Jump rings. That's the word, jump rings. Instead of jump rings, I'm going to be using these little links. Just take them apart, and I'm going to be using them. I just like the way they lay, and this was the design. Now for the silver wire, we're going to be, for making a single bead, we're going to be using 3 inches. So however many beads you're going to be using, you need that many 3-inch pieces of wire. And for the 3 bead ones, I'll be using 10 inches. And for the 2 bead ones, I'm going to be using 8 inches. That's how much wire you're going to need. If you want to use bigger beads, you're going to have longer wire. And if you're using smaller beads, you can do smaller wire. So I made my focal stone. I already started. So I'm going to show you, as soon as I find my ruler, how I do the bead stacks. You don't need to see the ruler technically. So I'm going to want 10 inches of wire. So I just go up here and cut my 10 inches of wire. I did a live show on this. If you want a farther, less explained, more drawn out, you can go back and watch my live. Straighten the wire out. Give me my 3 beads on here. Now when you're looking at your beads, see the opalite beads are pretty much alike, but some of them are technically prettier than others. As you can see, because of this light, the opalite is kind of coming out blue. Very hard to focus on because there's just light reflecting off of it. And sometimes you'll get one that just doesn't reflect a lot of, it's kind of a blah stone. This one's just mostly white. So what you can do with those is you can use those for your last two beads that you put on the end of your chain. They're going to be behind the person's neck, so nobody's going to see them anyway. So you take your 3 beads and you kind of put them in the middle, and then you bend this one over, you bend this one over. Don't want to bend that one over yet because you need space to make your loop. So I'm just going to take my pliers. I don't do a lot of measuring. I'm just going to take my pliers and give myself a little bit of space. So then I'm going to take my round nose pliers, and you can decide how big your loop is going to be or how small your loop is going to be. You can mark it with a Sharpie, or, well, I would be better if you did a Sharpie. Didn't show you how to make that loop, but I'll do that on the next loop. So basically, you're just going to bring your loop around, and you're going to do a couple of twists around your stem, and then just leave it alone. You're going to come to the other side. You're going to decide, like I said, I don't do a lot of measuring. I do a lot of eye. Kind of get used to the idea. You can put a mark right there on your pliers with a Sharpie. It'll come off with a little bit of alcohol if it doesn't wear off. Then you just bring the end of your wire over your pliers like that. And now you just change which nose you're using so that it's on the bottom, and carefully avoiding that other wire. See, I got a little bent out of shape. Avoiding the other wire. Just straighten it out. Bring it in and do a couple of twists there. Now your loops may or may not be perfect. Like that one's kind of mangled a little bit. Take your flat nose pliers and kind of squish it down, and it flattens it right out. As you can see, it's kind of leaning over there. You can just take your round nose pliers, stick it back in there, get a good grip, and just pull it back a little. That straightens her right out. So now you're going to have something that looks like this. You got wires coming all over the place. Kind of mangled that wire. Keep them straight. Now we're just going to take this wire and kind of curve it around that bead. Swoop it around. You want to keep your curves on the same side. So you're going to come all the way around until you can see that one. And then you're going to make another curl. Bring it around this bead. And make another curl. And then you're going to wrap it once around this stem. And that'll hold it there. Now this one needs to be twisted around so that you can shadow or match the curves on that bead as you go back down. Now we're just going in the opposite direction, doing the same thing, except now we're going to follow along the wire that we already laid, like that. Twist that one around, bring it up, and loop it around once. So now you've got something that looks like that, and all of your curves are on the same side, so that when you lay down your necklace. When the necklace is on and everything's hooked together, they're going to see those swirls, like you can see there on this one that's already done. So now you just scarf with this wire. You're going to scarf your loop, making sure that you leave enough to put your jump ring in there. And then just like on the bails for pendants, you're going to trim this off. Watch, holding on to your wire so it doesn't go flying. And then you're going to tuck it in. Now my loop is smaller than I normally work with, but the concept is the same. Oops, off the camera. Got it laid down there. We're going to squish it in just a little bit and tuck it in. So that the end is gone. You still have enough of a loop there. Wow, lighting on these does not want to focus. So there you go. Do the same thing to the other end. Trim it off. Throw that in whatever waste receptacle you're using for your wire. Wrong tool. May have cut that one a little too long. And tuck it in like so. Straighten everything out. Now the next thing you want to do is make sure that your loops match up so that when you do, all you have to do is twist them a little. So then make sure that the loops are matching, they're facing the same direction. So that when you put if it's a problem, just twist them around a little with your old pliers, gently but firmly. So that when you lay them down and you hook them on, see that one's a little wonky, so we're just going to take and pull it back, straighten it out a little. There we go, so that when you lay it down, that loop is facing your main pendant and that loop is facing the rest of your chain, and you can see your swirls. And that's all you need. That's a 3 stack. The 2 stack, you do the exact same thing with a shorter piece of wire. And that's how you do your stacking. With a single bead, I'm using 3 inches of wire. I just slide it in there. It's a little bit of a trick for this. Put it in the hole. You don't want it halfway. I'll show you why in just a second. So you just leave a little bit of extra on one side, bend it over. So then now you've got the longer side here. You need a lot of space. I'm using about that much on my pliers, and I bend it the opposite way. Then we're going to come in and we're going to do our loop. Same size as the other loops. We're just going to finish it differently. Bring it around. You can flip your pliers or use the other point, whichever you wish. And then we're just going to scarf it to make it look nicer. You should attempt to do the same amount of turns. I'm working on 3. When you get to that 3rd turn, you just snip off what little bit of tail you have left. Keeping an eye on that little bugger right there so he don't hit you in the eye or anywhere in the face or go flying onto the carpet for your feet to find later, or your pet or your kids or grandkids. Now you've got this little tail sticking up. He's kind of sharp. You want to flatten him down. Just squish him down. Gently but firmly squish him down. If it gets a little wonky, you can just put one end of your pliers into your loop, the other end here, and squish them together a little bit. Dropped it. It doesn't have to be perfectly no feeling. You can feel no sharpness, although that is best, but you're putting it right next to the bead. So nobody's going to get cut or snagged or anything with it. See, now you have space. I did the extra long space on when I did the point, or when I did the bend on the other side, so now I have the space to do my 3 twists on this side. And now I have a longer piece of wire to get a hold of, because now I don't have the extra space that I had for the other side because of the extra wire. Now you can do this with your fingers like I'm doing, or you can get a hold of it with your pliers. Like so, and go around like that. Either way works. Don't worry if you get 4 loops in instead of 3. I will guarantee you that nobody's going to be looking at your jewelry and going, hey, that one bead right there, it's got 4 instead of 3 loops. Trim off your piece, the tail that's sticking off that you don't need. I didn't quite cut it all the way through. Sometimes that happens. You just bend it and it pops off. And now make sure that you come down. Oops, wrong tool. Got to use the right tool. And squish the pointy part down. Now my loops are a little wonky and they don't match. That's easy to fix. Flatten it out. Flatten them out. Just take your fingers like going one on each and twist so that they're the same. And your loops don't have to be exactly perfect either. Again, nobody's going to be looking at small, tiny flaws in your jewelry. And there you have your single bead. And now you just have to make as many of those as you need to make the length of chain that you want. The last one that I made on the live show had a 20-inch or an 18-inch chain of beads and a 2-inch extender that I just used the same chain with, that I'm going to be showing you on the next video how to connect everything together. And then you're done. But this one, the customer asked for it to be shorter. So this is a second one that's already sold. I still have to make a third one to put on my table to sell at my shows. Stay tuned for part 2. I'll finish it up, show you how to hook everything together, and we'll see the final product. Thanks. See you later.